Hi, everyone. My name is Mary Anderson. I'm the Director of Career Services at the College of St. Scholastica. The purpose of this presentation is to share some tips and ideas with you on how to effectively answer behavioral-based questions during the interview process. If you have questions at the end of this presentation or need to connect further for more tips and ideas and resources, feel free to reach out to me directly or with any of the emails and contact information listed at the bottom of this first slide. So I really feel like as you are preparing for an application process, each and every step of that process is about you effectively telling your story. So if you think about your resume and your cover letter, this is you effectively telling your story through written communication. The interview is you effectively telling your story verbally and often builds off what you've listed in your resume and your cover letter. And social media is really you effectively telling your story through interactions and actions and involvement. And again, today we will focus on the interviewing section of you telling your story. In general, in interviews, you would expect 3 or 4 types of questions. The first would be this group called general interview questions. These are the kind of questions you could receive anytime, anywhere, for any kind of position. So it might include things like, tell me about yourself, or what are your strengths, or why are you interested in us? Behavioral-based questions, again, are the ones that we will be focusing on today. You might also receive major specific questions, so questions that really are asking about your background related to your major and your career field. And then occasionally you receive oddball questions. These are questions like, if you're a type of tree, what kind of tree would you be? And the goal of these is to have you think on your feet and be authentic, use some humor, but be able to problem solve pretty quickly with a unique question. So behavioral-based questions. These are questions that generally start with something like, tell me about an example when, or share with us a story that demonstrates blah, blah, blah. The goal of these is for you to use real-life experiences to highlight your skills and your abilities. Remember, as you're answering those questions, you can use stories from work or internship, volunteer, academics, leadership positions. All of those tell a story about who you are. As you go through, your responses will really reveal your skills and your abilities and your personality. As you prepare for this type of question, one of the first goals is to really brainstorm the type of skills that you think an employer will desire. So you can discover that often by looking at the job description. When I'm asking you to brainstorm here, I'm really looking at skills that would be more what we describe as transferable or soft skills. So things like your communication skills, your cultural competency, times where you've set a goal and achieved a goal, your ability to build rapport with other people. Take a break, think about for this position, for this field, this career path, what are some of those soft skills or transferable skills you think an employer might be looking for during the course of the interview? Next step is for you to think of 10 to 15 great stories about yourself that connect with those particular skills. Once again, think about experiences that come from all the different places in your life: academics, work, volunteer, leadership roles. Pause, think about times where you received really great feedback, where you accomplished something, or you learned something, where you had a really great aha moment. Now, I said think of the skills first and then your stories. You certainly could do this in reverse. You might first think about 10 to 15 great stories about yourself, and then identify what skill you think you use the most or could highlight from that particular story. Either way is fine, with the goal of, in the end, having this bank of great stories about yourself tied to specific skill sets. Once you've done that, there is an art to good storytelling in an interview. And not surprising, it should have a beginning, a middle, and an end. However, for many of us in an interview setting, we want to start right into the action. Whereas good storytelling, you need to start with the setup, which is the background for the story. Then move into the action, that's the details of the story, ending with the result, the summary or conclusion. So let's go through that again. The setup is really you describing the situation. Where and when did it take place? What is the context? The goal of that is that it allows the listener to start to visualize your response. The action, again, where most of us want to start, this is what you did, what happened, what was your role in that situation. Try to be specific and concrete and give details as you go through this. Focus on the skills and always trying to bring it back to the original question that was asked. Conclusion, the results. In conversation, most of us don't do this, but it's very helpful in an interview to add a conclusion. The results, what you learned, what the impact was. You can either end it with a summary statement, or you can bring back the skills described and how it would help you or impact you in being successful in the position that you're currently applying for. As you do this, the goal is to not just think about these things, but to actually practice. Practice so that you know what it feels like to respond in about 1 to 2 minutes. That's the general guideline in how long responses should be to interview questions. If you're answering in 20 to 30 seconds, you're not giving enough depth. If you start going over 3 minutes, you're giving too many details and the listener starts to tune out. So I'd encourage you to choose one of these and practice. Either give me an example of a time that demonstrates your strong communication skills. Very common interview question. Or tell me about a time when you had to teach someone something and what approach did you take? What did you learn from that experience? Or share a time that shows your strong attention to detail. Go back, think of your story. What's the beginning? What's the middle? What's the end? And say it out loud. Even time it so you start to know internally what it feels like to talk for 1 to 2 minutes. The key in all of this is the practicing. While some of you may feel like it comes fairly naturally for you, you've done interviews, you've been successful, I encourage you to not just wing your responses. Instead, think, organize, write, practice out loud. Part of that helps you to develop comfort and confidence in talking about yourself. There's many ways you can do it. So you can just record it on your phone. You can have a friend or family member ask questions and you respond to those questions. We also offer mock interviews in our office. We're happy to set those up. And we will play the role of the employer or the graduate school, ask you questions, have you respond, and then together we can critique and suggest improvements. The other suggestion I have for you is to use InterviewStream, which is a technology that we provide through our website. So if you went to our website, css.edu/career, on the right-hand side, you would see this InterviewStream logo. You can click on there, which will bring you to this page. You will need to set up an account, which requires one more password for you to remember, but it is a free service. Once you log into the system, you will see a screen that looks like this. I would suggest you start by going to conduct an interview, and then once you select that, you can choose either custom interviews or created for me, and I would have you select created for me for your first go around. Within the created for me, we've selected a number of questions to create banks in certain topic areas. You will see one of those banks of questions is behavioral-based questions, where we have pulled 8 sample behavioral-based questions for you to practice. Once you select this, it will test your sound quality. You also have to have a webcam to do this, and then you would start your interview, at which time a pre-recorded face will show up on your computer screen and ask you the first question. So for example, it might say, give an example that demonstrates your strong communication skills. It counts you down and then you respond. If you don't like it, you can redo it and try it over again, or you can go on to the next question. When you're done, you can review all of your responses, or you can share it with someone else and ask for feedback. What is so helpful about this is it, again, forces you to move from just thinking about it in your head to saying out loud and begin to develop that comfort in sharing stories about yourself in about 1 to 2 minutes. If you don't like the questions we chose, or there's other questions you want to practice, you can create your own bank of questions. So you can go in and select create an interview. There's hundreds of sample questions you can pick from. You select those questions and then you start the interview and go through the same process as described above. I truly believe that interviewing is both a skill and an art. The skill is the importance of thinking things through ahead of time, practicing what is the beginning and middle end of the stories. And the reason we have you practice is not that you become so memorized or rote in your responses, but so that your nerves don't get in the way of you telling that story. And then once you're there, the art is you being authentic and genuine, using some humor, and really thinking of it as a conversation between you and the employer. Some of you will find interviewing fun and it comes really naturally for you. Others would say that you're never going to love interviewing. And that's okay. Either one of you, if you're in either of those camps, practicing does help you to improve. And along the way, it really is okay to ask for assistance. You might need one of us to help you as you start, to support you, to guide you until you feel comfortable doing this on your own. With the end goal of having you feel comfortable in being authentic and genuine and sharing your stories so that the listener can hear the skills, the background, the passion, and energy that you have for that particular position. Happy interviewing.